Gemara. Today's daf was the end of Nigma, the end of Hayaboikim. We're up to that base, and we're actually on the bottom of the mouth of the day. Just one quick thing in the yeshivish world, I got to tell you, interesting question. We were learning that we were asking a question that maybe the Adim can say if they were found liars. We never intended to kill the person. We were just trying to make her forbidden to her husband. In other words, Adim can narrow down what their aid is and forget about the collateral damage. So the yeshivish world, that's an interesting question. The Adim who come along, or a Mazim group number one says that Reuben killed Shimon. Come along group number two, and the Mazim group number one that said, how can you say Reuben killed Shimon on a Sunday when you were with us? Comes along group number three, and they say that group number two, how can you say that you were there when you were with us somewhere else altogether? So the famous question is, why can't the group number two, why can't they argue that we didn't come here to kill group number one? We just came to vindicate an innocent person, using the same argument. Yeah, but we're saying here, our Gemara's attitude is that the Adim can narrow their Adis. What we're targeting, either collateral damage, that wasn't our purpose. And it seems that we accept that, other than we can, prove otherwise. So why can't every time Adim Zayim, the group number two, come with that taina and say, we never intended to kill the Adim, we just want to save an innocent person? That's the question. So the yeshivish answer is, if that was your intention, then why do you have to find both witnesses liars? Just target one witness, because the din is, if one of the witnesses, no matter how many witnesses were there, passes the whole group, and you save the guy. The fact that you targeted both of them means you also intended to kill them. Okay, we're at the Memalef on Bay's fascinating Gemara. So we're talking about over here, mistakes that witnesses that we can tolerate. From there, we also learn out regarding Kiddush HaChedesh. So in fact, the whole sugya of Kiddush HaChedesh is right here. This is it. And so we'll talk out a few quick things about it. Very interesting. Says the Gemara. On the bottom of the page, 5 lines from the bottom. Amar Rabbi Acha bar Chanina, Taf Mem Aleph on the base. Rabbi Acha bar Chanina said, Amar Rabbi Asi Rabbi Yechon, Ad kama mevorchin ala chodesh. Until when can you mevorch ala chodesh? Ad shetemale pigi masa. Rabbi Yechon made a generic statement. He says, Ad shetemale pigi masa. Until the pogrom is full. The ad Shiva. Until the 7th day of the month, you can be mekadesh l'chodesh. That's very interesting. We'll see in a minute. Ad Shishas, until the 16th day. When we say 7th or 16th day, we're talking about from the Moiled. 16 days from the Moiled. Machlekes is ad bechlal or ad v'loy ad bechlal, from the Moiled. Because sometimes the Moiled can be a day before the Rosh Chodesh even. So you count these days from the Moiled. But Tavayu, they're not arguing, they're both agreeing in Rabbi Yechon the question of what Rabbi Yechon meant. One of them says Kiyasa should be like a bow and arrow, which is only a quarter, which is 7 days. And Holameva Kehenafia should be the full circle like a sieve. And therefore you need it up to the 16th day. And so just a few quick things. Interesting, a number of machlekes in regard to Kiddush Levana. First of all, the obvious, why do we call it Kiddush Levan? Should we call it Chiddush Levan? The bracha is Mechadeh Chadashim. Why do we call it Kiddush Levan? So the only possible explanation is because when it started out in the beginning, it was going through the Bezin saying Kiddush HaChedesh Al Piriya, and therefore it's Kiddush Levan. And that name stayed. Even Rabbeinu Chananel proves, famous Rabbeinu Chananel, proves that, and there's Machlekes Rishonim in the end of the Shana, that in fact it's the main Kiddush HaChedesh was never here. It was always the Cheshbon like we have today. Nothing changed. And he'll prove it. Because in the midbar 40 years, there was no Riyas Halabana. Impossible. There's a cloud above them. And therefore, what do? And the mitzvah was given to them and the leaving Mitzrayim, which means that they started this mitzvah now. Why would you give them so early a mitzvah to start when they come to Israel? And it's impossible. Must be that they use calculations. Later on, when they were able to do Riyah as well, to confirm the calculations. And so therefore, according to him, you have to wonder why it's called Kiddush Levan, not Chiddush Levan. Anyway, it's a big machlek. Sorry?
You have they laid the graves in Tisha B'Av, and they didn't get, they weren't killed, so they waited until they saw the moon, and then they knew it's. So how did they see the moon?
Not that they, according to him, not that they waited to see the full moon, they waited on the calendar till the 15th day of the month. That's what he says. And in fact, there's a big machlekes of shayna that Eden kept any mitzvahs. Did they keep sukkahs? There's a cloud above them. How can you have a sukkah? Yeah, but did they keep the mitzvah of sukkahs then? Okay, according to that opinion, that was first of all sukkahs mamish, no problem. Even the sukkahs a cloud. So what? We started Hanukkah and we had them in the base of English for another 200 years. Yet they still have Hanukkah. Oh, so Friedrich Rebbe writes in a Maimon. Friedrich Rebbe writes in a Maimon when the story made from Shlander when it was cloudy and he took his handkerchief out of this. He said that Moshe Rabbeinu, the Medrash says that every month had to kiss Levana. He made his handkerchief, cloud separated so they can see the Levana. So they were able to do Kiddush Levana. Another thing, interesting machlekes. When do we start? According to the Rambam, as soon as the first day of the month is, you start doing Kiddush Levana. And there's some of the Shainim will hold that it's a mitzvah lamuvchad. These are magdil mitzvahs. Others say you got to wait at least, you got to wait 3 days. And others say you got to wait, and others say you got to wait 7 days. And here you have an opinion that the 7 days are all over already. We generally wait, 7 days. But there's a big machlekes within that. What about if Motzei Shabbos is day number 6? Is the mile of Motzei Shabbos, because it's, where's Motzei Shabbos come from? Masechta Sefer says you're not Mekadosh Chodesh, you're not Mekadosh Levana, only Mevusim. Mevusim means when it's nice and well dressed and everything else. Is the Mevusim going on the person or on the moon? So some say it goes on the person, which means when we're all dressed nice. That's why you should go Motzei Shabbos or dress Shabbos day. In fact, it says in Shulchan Aruch, if it's during the week, you should dress Shabbos day. Not just big dechel to Mekadosh Levana, because you Mekabel Shechina. Others say it's talking about the Levana. And that's the basis for the opinion 7 days. You need a Levana to be proper. And those who say 3 days, that's enough already. But the first day for sure, you don't see anything. So it's not Mevusim at all. That's what the whole machlekes is. There's an interesting machlekes and whether you can be Mekadosh Levana on Friday night. And I always found this Taz, a peldige Taz. The Taz, because it says there that why shouldn't you do it on Friday night of Motzei Shabbos? Because you're being Mekabel the Eibishter, as we say in a minute, and it's Tchum Shabbos. Because when you're going to be Mekabel the Eibishter, you have to sort of leave your wherever you are and Mekabel Eibishter. It's like you're going out of Tchum, and that's why you're not allowed to. The Rashba in Shabbos Shabbos doesn't understand. Doesn't we just Chum Shabbos coming there. Who walks out to Chum Shabbos? Or in your mind, what does that all even mean? And some say Dafka you should do Dafka on Friday night. But what Sapella is, the Taz says, because it doesn't make sense, that's why the Ramah doesn't bring it. And you look at Ramah before he brings it. He's talked about Yom Tov, but it's the same thing. He says Motzei Shabbos, if it happens to be Yom Tov, don't do it. In other words, you don't do Shabbos because it's the same problem. And I don't know what that means exactly, but that's an interesting thing. Another interesting thing is if you can say Kiddush HaChodesh under a roof. It says you shouldn't say under a roof. Why not? The Magbram says a peldige thing as well. He says because some say, first of all, the Rashba writes in the Tshuva, there are a lot of secrets with Kiddush Levana, and we can't share it with you. And if you're zeicha to understand them, then you'll understand a lot of these nuances. As if to say, maybe this thing about Shabbos Friday night, there is a valid reason for it, but not because of the reasons we're giving you. We just can't tell you what they are. Can't disclose, yeah. But on the roof, the Rambam brings, you know why? Because maybe there's something tamei, and we have the din of oil that passes on to you. We daven dafke in the shul with a roof. I mean, why punk kiddush levana? And every time you damish vanessa, what are we doing? But anyhow, there's a lot of things happening there that was very difficult to understand. But anyway, the Gemara continues. There's a lot of interesting things about levana. So why do you make a tell you a native? Every month, you make a tell you a native that you have a moon coming back to us. What he says a native is good if it's bad when you don't have it. Do we make dynamis when you don't have it? So says no. Sorry, so Taka do both. So we answer, keeping the because while it's rising, you know that even when it's declining and waning, you know that it's going to wax. You know it's going to grow again. So there's no diameter, no teva. The Taka asks, why don't you make a bracha shechiyanu? One of the answers given is you make shechiyanu is because you only make shechiyanu if it's once in 30 days. But we know the new moon is once every 29 and a half days. That's a chalakim, so therefore it doesn't make it for shechiyanu. Just like you're receiving the Eibishter. In this week's parsha, when they were seeing the Eibishter. Rabbi Shmuel, if that's the only, and Rashi says here, very interesting thing, if the only mitzvah, we had no other mitzvah in the Torah. This is the only mitzvah given to us. It will be good enough. Totally thing. This is the only mitzvah that we, good enough. You don't say that about any other mitzvah. If we should say standing, what do you mean because of what? Partially because Mekabel Shchina. I once saw a beautiful word. There's two kinds of mitzvah, actually three. There's brichas hanenin and there's brichas hamitzvahs. A bracha for having pleasure and a bracha for a mitzvah. And the difference is, do you have to stand? A brichas hanenin, we sit, you make a bracha. In fact, you're supposed to sit if you want to be mighty others. Otherwise, you're not in shayla. But kiddush, avdallah, can you stand? You're being mighty others for the bracha bar piragafa. But when it comes to brichas hamitzvahs, you have to stand. We learn that in Chitzitz, whatever. You have to stand by brichas hamitzvahs. So the question is, what is this bracha brichas of the Levana? Is this brichas hanenin because we're enjoying the fact that we have light that we can see? So now that he said that, no, the main purpose is to mekabel pnei shchina. This is a brichas hamitzvahs. And dayim, you don't need another mitzvah. And hilcha, you have to do standing up. It's like a brichas hamitzvah, not a brichas hanenin. Very interesting. Abaya was the only Amida that was zeicha to be in davening a few times. Twice. I mean, before Haidu and then over here, by Kabbalah over here. No one else is zeicha. Abamida. And not only that, he's not saying it, he's telling you halacha. Hilcha should say standing. And that became part of the davening, part of the tefillah. So it's an incredible thing. They used to do a lot of different Rishonim have different types of mekaspa. They leaned on each other, they jumped on each other, they stood on each other's back, and therefore we were kaifetz. The Gimel Delugan from this Gemara right here. You know how they bracha that Yisrael? A bridge version. Baruch mechadis chadashim. Amalei, hi noshi did not be bracha. That's a bracha. Our women also make that bracha. El Gav Yehuda the Amar Rav Yehuda Baruch Asher b'Mamore Baruch Chakibru, because from the bracha we make today. Chayk man nasal lem shayshanas tachkidin knows that they go in their orbits, they don't change their orbits at all. Sashim is making lashes so kind, they're happy to do it. Poyale emes big machlek is shayim. Who is referring to when it says Poyale emes? Leibishte, or we're talking about here the Levana and the star, they're not changing their way. If it's Poyale in plural, obviously it's that. But the others say Poyale emes. Talking about the Eibishter, that this is how we see the greatness of Hashem. All those are born in the womb, which is in Gates in Mitzrayim. Everything else that we added in Kiddush Levana came later. So say for Chassidim from others that we added all these other parts to the Kiddush Chodashim. A Peldik Gemara here. It says Hani Noshi Didan. So what's the Gemara clearly say here? That women did Kiddush Levana. Women don't do Kiddush Levana. Magen Ram starts out here Kiddush Chodesh, that women don't do it. Even though Mitzvah says Shema Grama, women the one they can do it in the Gebracha, but not here. He brings in the Shalah. That because it's similar to the story of the Pagam of the Eitz Hadas, and therefore we don't. It's a negative thing. So therefore they don't get involved. Others say, which I always found a Pella, based on a Chasam Sofer in Chanukah, why women, even though they have a mitzvah, they don't like, because Kol Kvuda Bas Melech Pnima, and Chanukah Lich have to be done on the outside. Women generally were modest, they were inside. Difficult. So they want to say the same thing. Kiddush Levana should be on the outside, even though the Mashal, he should do Kiddush Levana from inside his house. And you open the windows, the Machlekes would even have to open your window now, as long as you can see it. But therefore, it's not one of their mitzvahs. Difficult to understand. When it comes to a mitzvah, maybe that's the cover to go and do the mitzvah outside. You're not being permanently there, whatever. But so others want to say, but what about Gemara right here? So the Magen Avraham says, Lav Dafka. They can say a short version. Let me say the short version, like Birch Hachmana, we say, by benching, short version. Yeah. So the Magen Avraham says, Noshim is a euphemism here for Amaratz. Pella, the Gemara never embarrassed to use the word Amaratz. But over here, they say. Anyway, the Meidi writes. So somebody want to answer that here's you see without David's name. That women used to make his Levana without David's name because of this pagam. But the Meidi writes. Noshim, look at me over here. That Noshim are Mekalish Levana, and he writes out the full bracha. The Mashal in Brochus, the above, they talks talks about how the Gemara a lot of times doesn't mention Hashem Elokeinu, but it means the full bracha. The Gemara doesn't go out of its way, so the Gemara immediately fills it in. But I once heard, or read, I can't remember, a pshat in a positive way. The reason why women didn't do Kish Levana is because for them Rosh Chodesh is a Yom Tov. We gave them because of the Egel, they got a reward that the Rosh Chodesh is their Yom Tov. They don't need to do Kish Levana. They live it. That's because they live in Rosh Chodesh. We who don't have anything special on Rosh Chodesh, therefore for us, we have to make a ganze Pasha Kish Levana and Bekabel Shchina to say our gratitude. Positive way of looking at it. Okay, weiter. Sagen wir weiter. Talking about these, talking about Zamoida, Kiftarbul, with all kinds of strategies. You know who's really successful in the war of Torah? Takboila doesn't mean strategy, it means chavilas. If somebody knows facts, knows mishnayos and braises, doesn't matter how sharp the other guy is, you'll always be right at the end because you'll find a mishnah, a brayse to support you, to give you a little insight into how it is. Rabbi Yosef about himself. Rabbi Yosef, we know, was Sinai. Rabba was Oker Harim. The Rav too was B'Koyach Shoyer. Who has the strength? Koyach Shoyer. And who is Shoyer? Yosef B'Choy Shoyer, Hadalei. So therefore, very interesting. Rabbi Yosef, the end of the Sotah says, like Tisna Anova Dika Ano. Don't mention the fact that Rebbe was the biggest honor because look at me. And here again, interesting that he says. And the Pele is the halach is on the Rabba. Even though we say Sinai Odif, and here we say again, and yet the halach of like Rabba, not like Rabbi Yosef, except 3 places. Machlekes, the 3 places are only limited to Bobasa or whatever, and to Kol Shas, but generally the halach like Rabba. I'm also a beautiful shot. What do you mean Rabbi Yosef was like Tisan Novakika? No, he was he's a big honor. The Navos is Rabba was 18 years old. Rabbi Yosef and Rabba were the candidates for Rosh Hashiva. Rabbi Yosef stepped aside to allow Rabba in. So he said over here, going to Ika, no, he didn't mean himself. He meant that the Doir should choose Rabba, even though the many people felt like that Rabbi Yosef was a bigger guy, but they themselves, the whole Doir themselves was, let the Rabba go in and ignore Rabbi Yosef. So it wasn't him; he didn't choose. It was the people there who chose and didn't care about all of these rules. And somehow or another that shows an Iniv Anivas for the Doir, not just for himself. Anyway, let's go back to our Mishnah. Only if they make a mistake in hours. And we have the Machleit and Beir Yehuda, how many hours? Say one before, one after, definitely is bottle. Why? Because they can't make such a mistake. What do you mean, before sunrise or after sunrise? One guy said before sunrise, one guy says during sunrise. It's still a big difference. No. Sometimes you think it's already sunrise, but it's not really sunrise yet. You're not seeing the sun, you're just seeing a ray, a reflection of a ray, but the sun hasn't risen yet. That's such a mistake people don't make. They bring the other age in, and then if somebody says an opinion, a Talmud says an opinion of chus, you elevate him to the bezin. Only for that day. That's what sounds like a Mishnah. The substance of what do you say? Let me stay there forever. There's no substance, then he doesn't go down that day. We don't want to discourage people for giving an opinion. It'll be embarrassed. If it turns out opinion doesn't have substance, they'll send it back like they send it in the back of the room. It's embarrassing. So at least the rest of the day stay there. And the next day you just start again from your normal seat. So what do you mean only for the day? It says in the mission only for the day. But if yesh mamish it says and that's a machlekes where takas lo'ilam becomes part of the bezin, that he gets his reward for finding his chus, or lo'ilam means this case. As long as this case is being tried, he's there. You said we don't drink wine. Yeah, in my time alone, why should you drink wine? Because it says in the pasuk, the la roiznim, and we're going to say roiznim means leaders. There's no wine. Those people who are dealing about serious issues of the world is al yishtaku. They shouldn't drink. Now, there's a big machlekes is showing what exactly we're talking about. We're talking about din nefashos and we're saying they shouldn't drink wine. Vices din imam say Allah drink wine. Allah drink wine. As Taisa clearly says it. We learned in the Gemara in Krisis that if you drink a Gravius wine, you shouldn't be paskening. That's a rav paskening Isa Beheter. So Tais is paskin that you can be a dying and a commercial thing and be a little bit inebriated. Not a problem. Others I disagree and they hold all because the Mishpat Echad Yelachem, all Shaftim have the same rules, including not drinking. Second one, right? Why should it be different? I mean, why shouldn't you have to have a quarter cup? Unless it's a cuss of this idea of a revius, because you're not talking about intoxicated at all. Just to get a cuss, you shouldn't be like avoiding the Christian, avoiding the base of English. Anyway, later, what happened? What happens? You have 70 people. You got up to 71, and you can't make ends meet because there's still even only one more l'chayv, and nobody's budging. What do you do? Later, remember we said Donu connect, they argue with each other, and nothing happens. I say eventually, the guy goes home innocent. If he couldn't get enough to find him guilty, he goes home. He goes home. So why go through this whole thing after the 71 people? If they can't come to a conclusion, why don't you zu? As soon as you reach 71 and you can't get enough of a majority of l'chayva, you need a majority of 2, you only have a majority of 1. Send them home. Why done it? We don't want people walking around saying Bezin is a stalemate. The only place in the world that I've ever heard stalemate is that you can have a game for 5 days and still walk away with a stalemate is in Australia. You have cricket or whatever, and you can play 5 days. And then there's a stalemate in America. You'll keep on going until eventually somebody has to win. We can't have a stalemate. Gemara says, hey, we can't walk away with a stalemate unless you have no breda. They tried since you Ikidami, others say that a public's question much more than that. Not wait till 71 and why done in. His question was, why even add numbers of 2? You had 23 judges. It's 11 against, it's what do you call it? It's 12 against 11. 12 will chayva, 11 is chus. Go home. That's the din. He said, he should attack his opinion that holds like it. You don't do it. If he reaches, it's 12 against 11, there's no going, you don't add anybody. That's the din. The din is, if you don't have a majority of 2, you go home. So I learned, by din moment you say, nizdaken hadin. This is an expression you say, nizdaken hadin. What in the world does nizdaken hadin mean? But by din fashid, you don't use that expression, nizdaken hadin. Mine nizdaken, what does it mean? This is a really complex din. Which do you think is more complicated? Of course, the is more complicated. You're right. Let's swap it around. You're right. It's in the fascist that you're saying is dakin adin, not in the mamonis. You know what this dakin adin means? Chacham dina. We concluded the din. And we did it right. And therefore, by din in mamonis, once we conclude, it's over. By din in the fascist, the din is we learned before that if somebody, even after the sentence, somebody says, "Oh, I can find a schus for this person that was indicted," okay, we'll reopen the case. That's why we don't ever use the expression "chacham dina." It's over, finished. We don't finish. Meisvei, I'll ask you a question. Godel shebadayonin. It says in the Braisa that Godel shebadayonin uses the expression as dakin adin. Now let's understand. We concluded the din. I love a Godel. It makes sense that the Godel daf gets bakovedik. Its case is over. Eliam, question. It's very complicated. Loi sagid lema Godel. Dafke the Godel should say it's beyond us. Kesufa the Kamasiv Nafshe is embarrassing himself that we couldn't figure out. It's too complicated. Yes, it's better that he says it. You did something bad. It's better you embarrass yourself than you imagine if another dying says, "Yep, it's way above." Yeah, it said we couldn't figure it out, and the head, the business sitting right there in the middle. So it's embarrassing. Better you say it yourself. Others say proof again. The case is very difficult. We have two opinions whether kashtin and chachamdina. That makes sense why the Godel says it. We concluded Godel ashbuchim is past. It's dignified that the dafke the Godel should say, "Hey guys, we finished. We're over." Let a stranger praise you, not yourself. So the answer, that Godel. No, when it comes to a bezin, everything has to be handled through the Godel. In fact, we know that we said that the din imam is maschilin min hagodel. We always more bakavedik. So therefore, now we learned gomrus adavar machnisin oisin gozr the machnis to bring everybody in, and Godel should be the yonin oimer ish pleni at zakai ish pleni at chayiv. That can make sense. Hadaloch hayibak. Rupe nigmaradin. This is quick. Nigmaradin. So now we're going into protocols. Now comes the sentencing. But see, cycling. We take him out for skila. Even though we talk about skila, all four punishments are the same thing. Based on skila, where was the place of the execution taking place? Not inside the bezin quarters itself, but outside of the bezin. She never said, take him out. And then you have somebody standing. So we're talking about the case of Makal, the guy, the Makal who cursed. So one person, what do you call it? And there was a person standing in that doorway of Bezin. He had handkerchiefs in his hand. In case, as we'll soon see, if you can find his chus, he would wave the handkerchief. The guy on the horse is further out, would then chase up the guys that were about to execute the person and stop them and bring him back to the Bezin. There was a horse and a person sitting on the horse at a distance that he can see the guy waving the flag. If somebody, anybody in the courthouse said, "Hey, I think I have a way of defending the defendant." This guy waves his handkerchief. The horse runs out and Mamid and stops them. Even if the guy says, "I can learn schus myself," bring it back. No matter how many times the vadchi is mamid, as long as there's some substance in his words. The Gemara Beis Skilla, where actually was the Beis Skilla? Chutz bezin have it right out, sounds like me right outside the bezin, not very far. Basula no more, but Tanya Beis Skilla chayu chutz mishalosh machnas, especially in Yerushalayim. So you have the Beis Hamikdash, you have the Harabayis, and you have Yerushalayim. So it has to be outside of Yerushalayim. Kedam, like you say, I've heard Tony Hachi. So why is the Mishnah say over here outside of the bezin? It should have said outside of the machnas. Nafkamina the nofik beidina the yasik chutz shows machna. Even if the bezin is situated outside of the machnas, avdin the basic skilla chutz the bezin. We still so if the bezin is sitting right outside the perimeter of Yerushalayim, you would think okay, then the basic skilla can be inside the bezin. No, we want a bit distant. It doesn't appear. The bezin itself shouldn't appear like a bezin of executioners. Like we had makkos, a bezin that kills once every 7 or 70 years is called katlonis or chavlonis. We need some time. If the gala or whatever it is right there outside the bezin takes a second. Yeah, this way it takes a little bit of time. Now, so it's clear they had a base of skilla. Machlekes is shining whether for the other punishments they also had a separate place for it, or was just outside of the bezin, outdoors. Anyway, how do you know 3 machnas? You must say the Torah learned. First by Makala says says Makala take mechutz l'machna. Okay, so it says chutz l'machna. It sounds like 1 machna. Chutz l'gil machna is so we'll decide it's 3 machna. Maybe it's only outside 1 camp. Then Makan, it says here mechutz l'machna v'nemar. It says by the porim hanisrafim. If someone had helm dovish a tzibur, so they shechted the base of Mikdash and they would take it outside and burn it outside, and they would take. It says in the pasuk, take the part out el mechutz l'machna. So just like over there, at Porim and Esrafim, it's chutz l'machna. It means chutz l'shalosh machnas. All 3 machnas is avkan. Over here also chutz l'shalosh machnas. Also over here, all chutz of the 3 machnas. Says the Gemara, and that's the Porim and Esrafim is talking about the par helm dovish a tzibur or the par koyin and Mashiach, right? Because they don't get eaten at all; they get burnt, and where they burnt outside of the camp, but they were shachten in the base of Mikdash. Says the Gemara, who told you over this outside? Maybe it's only outside 1 camp. Because what we learned, it says, as kol hapar, you should take out the part. Maybe it's only outside 1 camp. There's another passage where it says, El mechutz lamachne. It says you take it out of mechutz lamachne, like the parade. It says you take it out. Kasha soda is a paradishan. It says soda is a paradishan. It already says you should burn it like the first part. So why over here it doesn't say again mechutz lamachne? Little lamachne shnei. Tell you that the part that has to be burnt outside both camps. Okay, that's 2. It says again. That he should take the coin should go take the part and bring it out. Talk about taking out the deshen, outside of the mizbeach. Yeah, you take it outside again. It says you don't need it. Why not? It says it says that you should. We know by the par. It says burn the par of the kohen Mashiach or the helm of the tzibur where you burn the ashes. So we already know that ashes are burnt outside of the base of Mikdash. Why do we have to spell out by the ashes and burn it outside the machna? It's the 3rd machna. So that's how we know. So we know 3 machnas. So the mother, there's something else that's done outside of the camps. Schutichutz. You're not allowed to shech or bring a carbon outside of the Beis Hamikdash. It's called schutichutz. For that, you get karas. So let's learn for schutichutz. And over there, it's not outside. It's not dafka if you brought it outside of Shalim. If you start harazesim facing the Beis Hamikdash, you're already chayiv outside of one camp. But Leila Mishchutichutz, why don't we learn Mekala for Shchutichutz? They're both Chutz Lamachane, and because all it says that the only thing is a Pesach Oil Moed Lehevi. As long as you did it outside the base of English, even right outside, you're already chayiv. Maybe it's just one camp. I know you're learning from Pad Helam Dovashal Tzibur. Why don't you learn from Shchutichutz? Same idea. And there's one camp. Says the Gemara, Mestabra, it makes more sense to learn from Parman Esrafim, have the Leila Melech. You know why? Because there's a number of things that have a comment. She came, first of all, in both of them, it says Hoitze, and by Makal it says Hoitze, take it out. And by Podim it says, by Helm Dover Shibba, it says you take it out. But with Chutz, it just says you shechted it, Mechutz Lamachne, don't say the word Hoitze, number one. And then again, El Mechutz Lamachne. In it says by Shchutichutz, it just says chutz. It doesn't say chutz lamachna. So you already have two things in common between what do you call it? Mekalel, the punishment Mekalel, and Podim Hanisrafim. Then another thing is machshir. By the Mekalel and by Podim Hanisrafim, what you're doing, taking it outside, is a good thing. You're preparing it for a good thing. By the Shchutichutz, taking it outside was an avera, was a bad thing. Umechaper. Fourth thing is both of them are mechaper when they're outside. By shchutichutz, it criminates you for what you did doing it outside. The fourth thing they have in common. On the other hand, there's some other similarities with shchutichutz. Number one, shekain adam. Both of them are describing the person. Mekal is the person. By shchutichutz is the person. By Podim Hanisrafim, what are you taking outside? An animal. It's already different. Choyte, Mekal is a sinner, and the shchutichutz is a sinner. The Podim Hanisrafim, the pot is not a sinner. So it's really two things that has in common, Mekal and Shchutichutz. And Ben Neshama, what happens by Chutz? Over here, we're going to kill somebody, snuff somebody out. By Mekal, we're going to snuff somebody out. By Shchutichutz, you're snuffing out the Neshama of an animal. Part of stuff is ready to geschachten before in the base of English. You're just taking out the parts and burning it outside. And Pigel. And another thing is that Pigel, the Shchutichutz and Mekal, there's no Pigel over there. Because you're not eating anything. But here, you shechted in the base of English, you can have a piglet, you have the wrong place in mind, and so on. And so, you're right. So you're right, similarities in both areas, but machshir others. The fact that mekalel, the role of the person taking him outside, and by podim hanisrafim, the role of the animal outside is to be mechaper, if you prepare for a good thing, makes it similar. Now, Papa said, Moshe Chayasif, where was Moshe sitting? Machlavia. And the Taylor said, he said, take the Mekal outside. Is chutz l'machne. It's clear. Take it out of my machne. Take it out of machne. Forget this whole equations to podim hanisrafim. He said, take it out of the camp, out of machne. Then it says in another passage, why mention again? They took him out chutz l'machne. We already know. They followed Moshe Rabbeinu told them. Chutz l'machne Yisrael must be outside the third camp. They want to know. Maybe Moshe gave them instructions. Now they said they did exactly what Moshe told them. It's not extra. It says another pasuk. They did what Moshe said, so obviously they took him out of the machne. Why is it to spell out they took him out of the machne? To tell you a third machne. Elamiata, according to you, you tell me that as soon as they it says in the pasuk that they did what Moshe Rabbeinu told them. We don't have to repeat anything. So tell me, how come it says in the pasuk what they did? They did what Vayigmo Eisem. They stoned him with stones. If they did what Moshe told them, obviously they did what they're supposed to do. My Abdullah, what is it coming? Tell you more than we already know. We do the pasuk like in Tanya. We know that you have to stone from Har Sinai. Why mention again? The pasuk says here. One pasuk says Vayigmu Oisei Evan, and the other pasuk says that it says Avonim. So we needed this pasuk here. They followed what Moshe Rabbeinu said, and they threw one stone. And another place they throw a lot of stones. What's going on here? So first of all, we dash in Vayigmu. It says in the pasuk they did what Moshe told them. Vayigmu Oisei. It says the pasuk Vayigmu Oisei Evan. Oisei. Not in wearing the clothes. We'll see later whether they were undressed or dressed when they had skilla. So and without clothing. So his death should happen much quicker. Evan, single stone. She amazed by Evan Achaz Yotze. First you start with one stone. And one stone he dies, that's it. You don't throw any more stones. You don't have to mavazah him. We have stone and stones. Because I'm going to Eben stone, have I mean a hechle mace, bechadel, and yes, we would have thought you bring one stone. If he dies, good. If he doesn't die, he goes home free. Because no, we toss a lot of stones. Because a lot of stones, I mean, me cut a nice tarty. We bring a couple of stones. Because I'm going to Eben one stone. What are you telling me, Amaisa, with what a papa coming along and tell you a whole story here that Moshe Rabbeinu told him to get out? We had before Gzera Shava, Nemar, it says. So he said, a papa saying, Ilulay Nemar Kamar. So wouldn't have been Gzera Shava, I would have another way of learning. Wouldn't be for the pasuk. Sorry, this is what he's saying. Had it not been for, so the other way around, if it would not have been for this pasuk, what the Tana is saying is, even if we did not have the pasuk about Yigmo Isa Evan, I would have known, and you know, and says in front of I would have known from Gzeira Shava. We always learn that Gzeira Shava you don't make up. Ain't Adam Dong Gzeira Shava Ma'atzma. You have to hear from Rebbe from Moshe Messinai. So what's the public come along and saying that the Tana is saying we don't need the Gzeira Shava? In case we have it ready, in case we need Gzeira Shava. But now that we have this pasuk that Moshe Rabbeinu told them to take out Machna, and they took it out of the Machna, we no longer need a Shava. So what? But there is a Gzeira Shava. Yeah, how can it be? How can the public come along? What's going on here? Unless there is still a Gzeira Shava, but we learn other things from there. But we don't need to learn this from there. That's what he's saying. This din we don't need. We learn other din from there. From Gzeira Shava, whatever they are. Ravashi we'll just finish it. Ravashi says, I'll tell you another place. Moshe Hechav Yosef, like our Papa said. Where was Moshe sitting? In Machne Leviyah. In Machne Leviyah. Taylor said, take him out. It said, take him out. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, take it out of my camp. Take him out of Machne Leviyah. Then it says, outside Machne Yisrael. And then it says, and that's what it says, is La'asiyah. In other words, within Moshe Rabbeinu's commands, we already know two machlis. Not the way you learned on Papa that one is Moshe Rabbeinu told them take him out machlis, and then when they physically did it, that becomes a third machlis. No, when he said hoitz is a makal, that's already stop. Put a comma there, a break there. When he said hoitz, take him out, remove him from my camp, and then Moshe Rabbeinu continued saying el muchutz machlis is a third camp. When it says vayetzias a makal lasiyah, when you ask, that pasuk, that's to tell you they did what they did. It says it's that same question. It says clearly they did. No one needed for. First they were first they put their hands on him, they ate him, and then they pushed him off. Now that you're telling me, that when it says Hoitze is one machne and Chutz machne second machne, Hoitze the chsiva b'parim and Israfi ma'doshibu. You're telling me we learned till now that Hoitze Chutz machne is one phrase. You're not breaking it into two, and you learn second camp, third camp. So by parim and Israfi says Hoitze Chutz machne. What does that teach you? Kasha. That's like a kasha.